I got a new job, but my boss owns all of my possessions and is going to take everything if I leave. This is kind of a long story. But I am 19 and want to leave my job and find a new one. I can work part-time so I can finish school. My boss is okay with me leaving, but the problem is that he won't be able to support me anymore if I do, which means I will lose everything I own. Now I don't really know where to turn. I came here when I was 16. A guy I knew got a big suite in the hotel, which is one of the nicest ones in Dallas. We had a party there, we were drinking, and it got out of control. People threw up in the room, causing a lot of damage around the hotel and stealing a bunch of things. The next morning, I woke up to the manager and security yelling at me. My friends were all gone but left me sleeping. The manager took me to his office, and I was crying and begged him not to call the police. So he said I could start coming in after school and helping them clean rooms and do dishes in the kitchen to work off the money from all the damage, and he wouldn't call the police. After a few weeks, I told him I couldn't anymore because my parents wouldn't drive me since I wasn't bringing home any money to save, and they said he was taking advantage of me. But I just didn't want to tell them I was working to pay off the debt and didn't listen because I knew they didn't know the full story. So he bought me a used bike to use and said he wanted me there every day until the debt was all paid, plus the bike. Over the next few months, he got more and more demanding, and every time I asked how much more work I had to do, he always just said he'd tell me when I'm finished. And if I didn't want to, he could just call the police. So I just kept working and doing what he said. He changed my hours to 4 to 12 every night, and it was affecting my school. He is a nice guy and didn't want my grades to suffer, and I always had to bring him my report cards, but he said do not drop out. But when I turned 18, I stopped going to school and just slept during the day. When he found out, he said I had to be here pretty much all day if I wasn't going to be in school, which I hate because I don't really have any time for friends or my girlfriend. Then things got rocky with the rents, and I said I wanted to leave. My boss is house-sitting for a family that lives in India. It has been great, except for a couple of months per year when I have to move out because they are coming home. They don't know that I love them. For the rest of the time, it's not all bad because I've lived comfortably. He lets me take food home from the hotel that is left over from the very upscale restaurant, and the house I live in is really nice. If there are books or other things in the gift shop that no one buys, sometimes he lets me take those too. Still, I've told him several times that I want to be paid, but he always says I owe him and will not tell me how much the damage was or how much I have worked off. I know the statute of limitations is 3 years, and after that, he will press charges against me. So yesterday was exactly 3 years ago, and I told him that I knew he couldn't have me arrested any longer and that I wanted to quit. He said that's okay, but he bought my bike, all the good-looking clothes I have, and all the essentials I've needed since I was 16. Now he's saying if I don't work for him anymore, I can't live in the house, and I have to give back all the things he bought me to use during my job. He has got me a lot of things, but I have seriously no money, so there's no way I can leave the job. When I need something, I just ask him, and if I'm doing well at work, he will buy it for me. So I don't even know where to start to rebuild my life after this place. Are there resources for cases like this? Is there a way to make him let me do everything until I am on my own 2 feet? Thank you. Edit Monday morning. Wow, I am so overwhelmed. I looked again this morning and saw all the responses. I couldn't believe how much bigger a deal this was when I realized it. I know from an outsider's perspective how crazy this must look, but it was just so easy to fall into this thing and hard to get away from. I called 2 law offices today, and both were closed, but I filled out the contact form, so hopefully they will call me back. I also tried the police, but they said it sounded like a civil issue and said I should contact a lawyer also. I told them what you guys said, that he was basically using me as a slave, but they said that unless he was physically detaining me against my will, there was nothing they could help with. Thank you so much for all the help. Update 1. Thank you all so much for your advice this weekend. I'm literally in the middle of the craziest day of my life today. Looking back, I feel like my situation was way over the top, but it took hearing all of you say it, calling it slavery, and then going and talking to these lawyers for it to really hit home what he has put me through over the past 3 years. I'll write more later, but I just wanted a quick update because I'm so excited that I can hardly focus. Yesterday, I googled the top employment law firms in Dallas and sent some emails. I got a call from a lawyer saying he wanted to meet with me first thing in the morning. My mind was racing all night, and I didn't get to sleep until after 3 a.m. and needed to leave by 7. I printed out about 50 pages of emails I've had with him over the past 3 years. I never delete anything and also made notes from some of his voicemails. After about 5 minutes of talking to me this morning, he asked if it would be okay for some of the other lawyers he works with to join us, and I spent about 2 hours answering their questions and taking them through everything. The moment this all sank in for me, how big a deal this is, was when I saw one of the lawyers tear up a couple of times while I was talking. Sincerely, it never felt like such a big deal to me before, but now I'm seeing it in a whole new light. In the end, they said they would 100% take my case, and I wouldn't have to pay them anything up front. They just need a few days to do some research before we meet again and talk about the details, which is going to happen on Friday. Like a bunch of you said, they told me it's a lot more than just a pay issue and that there are a lot of parts they need to explore about lost wages and also criminal charges that he will 100% face, but they need to talk about the strategy first. They also said since I'm over 18 now, that my parents don't need to know anything or be involved in any way. When we were finishing, the main lawyer I was talking to asked what I was doing the rest of the day. I told him I thought I was going to play it cool until we actually sued him and I would go to work after this. I called in sick this morning and said I would be in after lunch. He said, will you excuse us for just a minute? And they went to another office to talk for a few minutes. When they came back out, they asked me if I wanted to stop working at this job and get out from under this guy. I said yes, so he said to go home and pack my things, and they are going to make arrangements for me this afternoon. He said I was never going to work there again and should not receive any calls or messages from them ever again. So I've been home now for a few hours packing, and then I got this email from their office. I'm going to replace places and names with the word blank so I don't dox myself. Hello, it was a pleasure meeting you this morning. Blank asked me to get in touch to share details of the accommodations we would like to provide as well as some logistical information in advance of your Friday meeting. We've made a 30-day reservation for you at blank, which is closer to our offices. I've attached a copy of your reservation confirmation. Please note that it has been paid in full. Blank from our office will be in touch around 4 o'clock this afternoon to check in on how things are going and coordinate with you on getting your things out of the house and into the hotel. She will also provide you with some spending money for any immediate essentials and get you set up with an UberX account to make transportation to our offices a little easier next time. Although we hope to represent you in these matters, we are providing these accommodations at no cost and with no obligation on your part. This is intended to help bring more immediate stability to your living situation so you can focus on the next steps in your life. Thank you again for getting in touch with us. We look forward to seeing you again soon. Warm regards, blank. I'm assuming they're willing to do all this for me and spend all this money because they think they're going to make a lot of money from it, which probably means I'm also going to come out well. So I am beyond thrilled with how this is turning out so far and 100% want to work with them. I still have a ton to pack and just wasted an hour on the internet, but I'm going to get back to it now. Thank you all so much for pointing me in the right direction. Update 2. I posted here a couple of years ago when I was stuck working for someone who threatened to have me arrested over some room damage my friends caused. Sorry, I can't find the post, but some of you may remember. A lot has changed since then. Any advice I got from all of you has been such a big part of it that I thought about this frequently and wanted to come back and write something to update you. The firm I hired was the best thing I could ever have hoped for. They got me out from under his thumb immediately and helped me get back on my own 2 feet without having to be under my boss, my parents, or anyone else. During the days after that, I basically lived in their offices for a few months when this started, since we were going through 1,000 emails and voice messages, talking about the context behind them all, and trying to make a long timeline of events and tell them everything that ever happened with him. It was so emotionally draining, but their team was very supportive and helped me get through the hard times. When it was all laid out in front of me, the guilt over what I did to my life really took hold. How could I be so stupid? It's so obvious what he was doing, etc. Simple math said that none of this made sense, but I just didn't see it. I think part of it was because of my parents and not wanting to listen to them so much that I decided they had to be wrong when they tried to get me to stop. My lawyer started talking to my boss and his lawyer, the hotel chain's executives, and also to the police, and they said there were also some issues that made it possibly a federal crime. None of that registered with me how serious it was, but once that happened and I thought things were going to be okay, he came to the hotel I was staying in. Yes, he actually followed me from my lawyer's office one day, and that's how he found out where I was staying and came to the door, yelling at me about how he gave me everything and did everything for me and that this was going to ruin him and his family, and showing me pictures of his kids who he said would starve without him to put food on the table, telling me I blew this all out of proportion and that my lawyers were going to bankrupt his family and put him in prison for life. They never said anything to me about that, and I didn't want his family to suffer so much, but he was also being really mean. He had never yelled at me like this before, and even though he never hurt me in the past, this time I was actually scared. I texted my lawyer to see what I should do, and they came immediately with the police. They arrested him immediately and got me a restraining order. A few days later, my mom and lawyer came over while I was taking a nap, woke me up, and told me he killed himself. I have never felt as bad as I did at that moment. It's a feeling I wouldn't wish on anyone. It was just a sick feeling in my stomach, and my whole body felt numb. I felt like it was a bad dream I could wake up from, except I couldn't. I had a mental breakdown and spent 2 months in the hospital thinking about all the things he said to me about his family and about me overblowing this, and it made me question everything again. My lawyer said they would handle as much of this as they could without me and just come to me when they had something important they needed my input for. My parents also came back into the picture and were very supportive, helping more than I ever expected. I asked my mom to bring a printout of all the comments from my first post, and that helped me a lot. I read over them every day just to remind myself that what he did was not okay and that I was right to get help. The most apologetic person was someone from the hotel chain. They said it was a privately owned and managed hotel, so my boss didn't even work for them, but they still wanted to make sure I was okay. In the first comments, you guys were saying I should be owed at least $30,000. Well, the hotel chain itself paid me more than that just for agreeing that they were not responsible for what he did. Lawyers said it was a generous offer they didn't even have to make and that the person I talked to genuinely felt sick over my situation and wanted to do the right thing. So they told me I should take it and that there was a lot more coming from the franchisee, which actually owns dozens of hotels, but not all from this chain. The franchisee was very defensive at first, but a big turning point was when they realized that one of the managers who was over the hotels in Dallas was actually a guy I saw all the time and who my boss had told the story of me working there, and we talked about it once, and he told me he hoped I worked it off soon and wished me good luck, but he knew I was there for years and he was also the one who approved our budgets, so he knew they were not paying me. My lawyers were very smart to find this out, and when they did, the franchisee wanted to settle. It was a big settlement. My lawyers got a third. They said it's one of the biggest any of them has ever seen for this kind of case, but they said it was fully warranted. I have enough to live on for a very long time. I can also finish my education in hotel management and will have enough left over to start a hotel if I still want to do that. It has been a blessing, but I also didn't realize how incredibly hard it is. I never told anyone about the settlement, but people found out. Everyone comes out of the woodwork and suddenly wants to be my friend again. So the hardest thing is by far trying to figure out who I want to be friends with and who I don't. Little awkward things like when you go to dinner with a small group and people look at you like they expect you to pay for everyone just because you got a big payout. Guess who even had the nerve to call me? The friends I was with all those years ago who left me in that damn room, and my girlfriend, whom I tried to protect from her parents by not revealing her name so her religious parents wouldn't find out she was bi. It hurt a lot to hear from them after all these years, very upsetting. Pretty much the only people I really trust now are the people who stuck with me before, but I do have a financial manager now who makes sure I'm being smart with my money and tells me how much I should use for different things I want to do. So that's my story, and now I'm going to school part-time, doing a lot of outdoor sports, and also getting into cooking. Little things like having time for hobbies and fun are a big change for me, and I still feel like it's some new life I'm getting used to. I feel like I've already lived 4 lives in these different little phases, but so far this one is my favorite. I still have nightmares sometimes about my old boss, just remembering him yelling at me the day at my hotel and then hearing that he died. I remember all the times he was nice to me, gave me things, did things for me, gave me dating advice, and told me I was smart, pretty, etc. Sometimes I wonder, even as happy as I am now, if it was worthwhile to know that he's gone and his family is suffering and has nothing. My therapist says sometimes the right thing can be hard and hurt, and sometimes bad things happen to good people who don't deserve it, but that I did everything right. So that helps me feel a lot better one day at a time.